America's preparing for war in space, and America's invisible frontier is protected by Guardians of the United States Space Force. This is how. Right now, as you're watching this video, there are American military personnel defending you from threats you can't see in a battlefield you've never thought about, fighting a war that's already begun. Welcome to the newest branch of the U.S. military, where the final frontier has become the next battleground. On December 20th, 2019, something extraordinary happened that most Americans barely noticed. For the first time in 72 years, the United States created an entirely new branch of its armed forces. The Space Force became the sixth military service, joining the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. But here's what makes this absolutely fascinating. This isn't science fiction preparation for some distant future conflict. This is a response to a war that's already happening right above our heads. Most people don't realize how fragile modern warfare really is. Stay with me, this gets much bigger. The United States Space Force operates with a deceptively simple mission: to organize, train, and equip space forces to protect American interests in space and provide space capabilities to the joint force. Translation: they're the guardians of an invisible infrastructure that modern civilization literally cannot survive without. We're talking about GPS satellites that guide everything from your Uber driver to precision missiles, communication networks that enable global internet connectivity, weather monitoring systems that predict hurricanes days in advance, and reconnaissance satellites that can read license plates from orbit. Here's the mind-blowing part. America's military superiority doesn't just rest on aircraft carriers, stealth bombers, or special forces anymore. It rests on roughly 11,000 satellites orbiting Earth right now, with about 5,000 of those being American assets, both military and commercial. The Space Force doesn't own all of these, but they protect the critical ones that keep America's military machine running. Without space superiority, the entire American way of warfare collapses. No precision strikes, no real-time intelligence, no coordinated naval operations across oceans. The most powerful military in history becomes significantly less powerful in about 90 minutes. To understand why the Space Force exists, we need to rewind to 1957, when the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. That basketball-sized sphere beeping overhead triggered an existential crisis in America. If the Soviets could put a satellite in orbit, they could put a nuclear warhead anywhere on Earth. The space race wasn't about exploration or scientific curiosity, it was about survival and supremacy. Fast forward through decades of Cold War competition, and space became increasingly militarized, just not officially. The Air Force handled most military space operations through its Space Command established in 1982. But as the 21st century unfolded, something changed. China demonstrated it could destroy satellites with ground-based missiles in 2007. Russia developed sophisticated anti-satellite weapons and deployed what intelligence officials call inspector satellites that can approach and potentially disable American assets. Suddenly, space wasn't just a force multiplier for warfare on Earth, it became a battlefield itself. The creation of the Space Force wasn't a whim or publicity stunt. It emerged from a harsh strategic reality. America's competitors recognized that crippling American satellites would be the most cost-effective way to neutralize American military dominance. Think about it. Why build a navy to compete with 11 American aircraft carrier strike groups when you could blind the satellites that coordinate their operations? Why develop thousands of tanks when you could jam the GPS systems that guide American smart weapons? Space became the ultimate asymmetrical battlefield. Now, let's talk about what makes the U.S. Armed Forces the most formidable military organization in human history, because context matters here. The total active duty personnel across all 6 branches stands at approximately 1.3 million service members, with another 800,000 in reserve components. But it's not just about numbers, it's about capability, technology, values, and integration. The U.S. Army fields roughly 485,000 active-duty soldiers, operating about 6,000 tanks, including the M1 Abrams, widely considered the world's most lethal main battle tank. The Army maintains over 4,100 armored fighting vehicles, 1,300 pieces of rocket artillery, and approximately 4,500 helicopters, including the AH-64 Apache attack helicopter that can engage targets from miles away in complete darkness. The U.S. Navy commands the seas with 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, each one representing more air power than most nations possess in their entire air force. That's backed by 90 destroyers and cruisers equipped with the Aegis combat system, the most sophisticated naval weapons platform ever devised. Add 68 submarines, including 14 Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines, each carrying enough nuclear firepower to destroy continents, and you begin to understand the scale. The Navy employs around 346,000 active-duty personnel who operate this global armada. The U.S. Air Force controls the skies with over 5,200 aircraft, including 170 F-22 Raptors, the only fifth-generation air superiority fighter actually deployed in meaningful numbers until recently, and over 450 F-35 Lightning II fighters that represent the cutting edge of stealth technology. The Air Force maintains 330,000 active-duty airmen operating everything from B-2 Spirit stealth bombers that can strike anywhere on Earth within hours to RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft that vacuum up electronic intelligence across entire regions. The Marine Corps, America's Rapid Reaction Force, fields 186,000 active-duty Marines with over 400 tanks, 1,300 armored vehicles, and 1,200 artillery pieces. They maintain their own air wing with over 1,000 aircraft, making them more powerful than most nations' entire military. The Marines represent America's ability to project overwhelming force anywhere on the planet within days. The Coast Guard, though smallest with 42,000 active-duty members, operates over 200 cutters and nearly 2,000 boats, defending American waters, enforcing maritime law, and conducting search and rescue operations that save thousands of lives annually. During wartime, they transfer to the Navy's operational control, becoming a crucial component of maritime defense. And now, the Space Force, currently the smallest branch with 8,600 active-duty Guardians, as members are called, and another 4,000 civilians operating 77 spacecraft and 9 dedicated launch sites. But size here is deceptive. These 8,000 people control the high ground that makes everything else possible. What truly distinguishes the American military isn't just overwhelming hardware, it's the values and principles woven into every aspect of service. Every member of the U.S. Armed Forces takes an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not a leader or a party, but the fundamental principles of American democracy. This matters profoundly. It means the military serves the nation's ideals, not individual ambitions. The core values differ slightly by branch but share common threads. The Army emphasizes loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The Navy lives by honor, courage, and commitment. The Air Force operates on integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. The Marine Corps upholds honor, courage, and commitment with legendary intensity. The Coast Guard follows honor, respect, and devotion to duty. And the Space Force has adopted character, connection, commitment, and courage as its foundational values. These aren't just words on plaques, they're drilled into every service member from day one, creating a warrior ethos that prioritizes mission accomplishment while maintaining moral and ethical standards. This cultural foundation gives American forces an edge that can't be measured in tanks or satellites: trust, initiative, and the ability to operate independently when communications fail or plans fall apart. If this changes how you see modern warfare, hit like. It tells YouTube this topic matters. The Space Force represents the evolution of this tradition into the newest domain. Their mission breaks down into 3 core responsibilities. First, space superiority, ensuring America can freely operate in space while denying adversaries the ability to do the same. Second, global strike coordination, providing precise targeting data and missile warning systems. Third, battlespace awareness, which means collecting and distributing intelligence from space-based sensors that see everything from troop movements to missile launches. The technology they manage is staggering. The GPS constellation alone consists of 31 satellites providing positioning data accurate to within meters for billions of users worldwide. The military uses an encrypted version accurate to within centimeters. The Defense Support Program and its successor, the Space-Based Infrared System, can detect missile launches anywhere on Earth within seconds by sensing the infrared signature of rocket plumes. Advanced imaging reconnaissance satellites can photograph objects smaller than a basketball from hundreds of miles up. Communication satellites enable secure military communications across the globe, from special operations teams in remote mountains to carrier strike groups in the Pacific. But the Space Force isn't just defending satellites. They're tracking over 34,000 pieces of space debris larger than 10 centimeters, any one of which could destroy a satellite in a collision. They monitor other nations' space activities, watching for suspicious maneuvers or potential threats. They develop and deploy new space technologies, from responsive launch capabilities that can put replacement satellites into orbit within days to experimental systems we won't know about for decades. The strategic implications are profound. Whoever controls space effectively controls Earth, not through occupation or domination, but through information superiority. When American commanders can see enemy movements in real time, communicate instantly across continents, and strike with precision guided by satellites, while adversaries operate partially blind, the battlefield tilts decisively. This is why China and Russia have invested heavily in counter-space capabilities, from cyber warfare targeting satellite control systems to directed energy weapons that could blind optical sensors. The Space Force's creation acknowledges a fundamental shift in warfare. Future conflicts won't begin with tanks crossing borders or aircraft bombing targets. They'll begin in space, with attacks on satellites, jamming of communications, and disruption of GPS. The first casualty of the next major war will likely be something orbiting 200 miles above your head that you didn't even know existed. This invisible frontier has become the most critical battleground for American security. While aircraft carriers project visible power and tanks provide tangible strength, it's the satellites overhead, defended by Space Force guardians you'll never meet, that truly determine whether America maintains its military edge. One good fact remains. Semper Supra, always above, is not just about space superiority, but an undertaking to protect United States interests in, from, and to space. In an age where information dominates warfare, the high ground isn't a hilltop anymore. It's low Earth orbit and beyond, where America's newest warriors stand watch over the systems that keep our civilization running, one orbit at a time. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the systems that quietly shape the world.